And a lot of it is I had a very bleak growing up. My father used to beat me up with his fists because he was an unhappy man. And so a lot of the artwork, as I developed as an artist, a lot of it, the first things I did were like very psychodramatic, where you act out, but you don't understand what's going on inside you.
Reading, writing, arithmetic, we will show you how it sticks. That's how it goes at Lesson Ground.
That's a major part of the story.
Yeah,
so then when Diana was ill,
God killed him off.
When Diana was ill, I was doing these kind of ballpoint pen drawings. That's all that is, ballpoint pen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite pen that you use?
Yes, Uniball. And here's a 3-part drawing on rough paper. It's on the 5th day, the creation of the animals. See, it goes from the chaos of night into day, and then the animals are coming forth.
You're just missing trees and plants.
Well,
If we move a few
then
days
I
on.
did.
No, they were made before the animals.
Then I did this one, which I like too. It's called the Halloween.
Oh, I like that.
What do you use for color?
What do you mean?
Is that watercolor or acrylic or?
On this? I mean, things like that, I use acrylics, mostly. Yeah. Well, this one here is this print hand-colored with ink. This is the original print that I hand-colored it in with inks. But if I'm doing something otherwise, I use acrylics. And then this was a major thing I was involved in. It's all in my books. So all of this, plus a lot of other stuff. But this was one of my things. It's an original alphabet of cap initials, and each initial is a drawing. It's a medieval idea. I have a lot of stuff that's based on the Middle Ages.
So, Joel,
Yes.
now that you're a little bit more advanced in age,
Yes.
as I am,
Yes, ma'am.
why is it important for you to have this wonderful collection organized and having people see it?
My original impetus for doing all this was to leave some kind of a legacy behind me. So I would be marked by something, by something that was important to me, which is creating art, and writing and other things.
Well, and hopefully inspiring to young people that might see it.
And part of the reason was as a memorial to my wife's passing, and to kind of the enhancement of my art gallery out of the studio. So all that.
Well, me, as an educator, I'm always thinking about what are we leaving behind for the younger generation to hopefully learn from us and inspire them to follow their dreams and their passions and expand on them, so that, I tell my students all the time that they're learning this is a gift they have for life. Right. And that someday they can pass that on to their children, and so on and so forth as generations move on.
I think the best thing that an artist can do is not consciously try to create something for the next generation, but be true to themselves and do what they do, because only they can do it, and then hopefully that will generate.
Right.
That will generate. I can't think of the word I want. Inspiration.
Right. To help them, to aspire to something bigger than themselves.
I find that when you try to do something deliberately, it usually has the opposite effect.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I just had to do what I had to do, and then hope it would move other people.
Well, as a musician, or as someone that I like to, I am not officially a songwriter or a composer, but I have the ability to hear words spoken or see film, and then interpret the piece musically. and you have to kind of dig into your soul to get it out. And people say, how do you do that? That's not something you can explain. You can't put it
No.
into words.
No, you can't,
The
you know.
creative process is such that there's nothing, that we can say, okay, step one, do this, step two.
Well, also, I guess I should say this. A lot of my life, I didn't really know why I did things, or the things I was doing. A lot of that was coming out of the unconscious, and I didn't have a rational explanation for a lot of it. So anything I know about myself now is the product of many, many, many years of introspection.
It's too bad we don't live to be 200.
That's right. But now I finally, in retrospect of that, after all this introspection, at least realize why I did certain things, the way I did them.
Good, good, and by organizing this showing and then the next one, and the next one after that, you constantly feed off your
Absolutely.
creativity. You
learn more about yourself each time as you
yes,
go along.
and then you see opportunities to do new creative projects.
As you go along, you learn more about yourself, and then finally, when you're too old to do anything about it, like me, you realize what it was all about.
What do you when you say what you learned about yourself? What
I meant by that is a lot of, as I said before, a lot of my art I didn't understand myself. Why did I do it? What does it mean? That kind of thing. And the more I introspected on that over the passing years, the more I finally realized a lot of it meant, and why it meant so much to me to do it, and why I had done it. So it's a long, drawn-out process of examining yourself.
Art therapy.
Just examining
It's
yourself.
art therapy, and then if and you don't necessarily need an outside therapist to help you come to the same conclusions.
And then I've always in a way been a student of self-realization. What's that saying? We're put on the path, and we're supposed to go toward enlightenment, toward the light, away from the darkness. I've always felt that that's me. That's some to a large extent part of me. Yeah.
Well, I think you obviously have your artistic direction. I have my art. So I think we can relate to each other in the sense that for me, music saved me, and it was my safe place, and I was able to kind of climb into a cocoon almost of music at times that were very dark in my life.
Well, my art when I started out was what you'd have to say is very similar to psychodrama, where I acted out through my art, but I didn't know why, and I didn't know what I was doing. And a lot of it is I had a very bleak growing up. My father used to beat me up with his fists because he was an unhappy man, and so a lot of the artwork as I developed as an artist, a lot of it, the first things I did were like very psychodramatic, where you act out, but you don't understand what's going on inside you.
Right, of course.
You act out emotionally, but you don't understand.
Well, you don't have life's experience. You're young, and you're
right.
just,
you don't have retrospective on it.
I think about Beethoven, because he was physically abused by his father, who used to beat him around the head.
Mine too.
And
he used to beat me in the head.
And he lost his hearing because of his father's abusive ways. And of course, his music, if you really listen to it and you analyze it, you hear the darkness. You hear where he's coming from, such anger and such darkness.
Right.
Very seldom do his pieces project lightheartedness.
Well, I learned a lot from the art, from the life of Goya, my favorite artist, my most influential artist, Francisco y Goya, from Spain.
Right.
I learned a lot from him. He was considered the link between the old masters and modern art. Because he was one of the first artists to serve the purpose of reportage, reporting and commenting on the world around him, which was very chaotic. Well, that's how reportage started, but he was instrumental as a forerunner of the newspapers and television and all of that stuff.
Capturing it all.
Yeah.
Yes, for
So he's a very, very important artist in art history.
Well, that's something that I should aspire to, is doing more study of art history, because I'm very interested in music history, and you know, I have always believed that if you understand the life of the composer,
Right.
with it filled with its challenges, you will then understand why they wrote their music a certain way, and when
Yeah.
you yourself are playing it, you feel you understand.
Right.
Because you have that knowledge of what they went through, like Mozart and his drug addiction, and he was probably would today be diagnosed as manic depressive. So you hear his manic music most of the time. He was writing in manic.
I didn't know all of that. That's
Right.
interesting. And then, you know, I was pretty much completely a black and white artist in the early stages of my life. All of New York, really, anything serious was done in black and white, whether it was films or art, no matter what it was. Black and white was considered serious, color was considered frivolous. And
Interesting.
the artists that came out of New York in that period of time did black and white art.
It's interesting because classical musicians consider jazz. Well, we always say in the classical world, when you play a piece and you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Just call it jazz.
Oh, it's not like that at all. No.
But see, classical musicians don't consider jazz to be serious music.
Oh, it's serious.
And jazz is very complicated, actually.
Yes, it is. And something I probably never told you. I used to sing with a 20-piece big band.
No, I knew you. I know you.
And one mistake, and you've effed up 20 people.
Well, or there was the day where
It's serious.
where we were.
Yeah.
Our company. This is many years ago in the '90s when I was running my big company
Yeah.
and piano store. We did a big concert, Music Infinite, and I had. We formed a 4-piece, group to play some jazz, and I was sitting there at the piano. I was their keyboard player.
Uh-huh.
Well, I come from a very Mozartian world,
Oh, okay.
and now I'm sitting in with jazz players, and they hand me the score to play, and I'm playing it the way it's written, and they look at me like, "What are you doing? You're playing like this.
Well, you know,
You're a square."
It's very interesting.
And they yelled at me, by the way, and I was writing their paychecks.
Some of the most famous jazz musicians, piano players, like Earl Garner, for instance.
Oh yeah, I love Errol Garner.
Earl Garner. They didn't read music.
No, I know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that.
And Steve Allen is in the Guinness Book of World Records
He was great.
for having written the most songs of anybody else, composing,
I met him.
and he didn't read music. And he used to
Yeah.
hum into a tape recorder. No, this is true.
I know this is true. I met him.
And have anything he hummed into the tape recorder, he would have somebody transpose it for him.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's pretty remarkable.
Well, John Denver, although he was not Steve Allen, John Denver actually did something very similar. Didn't read a single note, but he was a songwriter, and
good one.
He would be humming a melody,
Right.
and one day he was on an airplane, and he was sitting next to a guy who apparently was a musician, and here's John Denver writing out a little whatever it was, a song of some
Yeah.
sort, and then humming to himself and writing it in numbers, like 1, 5,
Yeah.
3, 6, and the guy next to him said, "What are you doing? Are you writing a song?" Yes. So he introduced himself, and so he says, "You want me to take these numbers and turn it into real music?" And from that point on, they actually got to know each other. They formed
interesting, yeah.
they formed a friendship, and he would actually transcribe his John Denver's music, and Bob Dylan, same thing.
Now, the other thing is, I guess you know this already. Steve Allen was a very good piano player.
Oh, he was. I did a.
I have some of his albums.
I actually wound up doing. It was some sort of a charity event. It was like in Westlake Village when I had my company, and I was asked to provide them a piano, which we did for the day. It was a fashion show, and Steve Allen performed. So I got a chance to talk to him, and we talked for quite a while about the fact that he, had limited skills,
Right.
shall we say? But he was very prolific.
Here's a good insight into Steve Allen's personality. Dan and I went to see him speak at UCLA, but he hadn't brought his notes. He forgot them. He says, "I don't have my notes. Do you mind if I just talk about anything for an hour?" He had to talk for an hour. He was so interesting. Nobody wanted him to leave when he was done.
Yeah, I think it's.
He could just go off on a riff, and anything he said was fascinating.
Well, I think that true communicators can do that.
Right.
It's the people that need their note cards and their teleprompters, and they absolutely freeze if they don't have their little.
He was a man of a heightened intelligence. I never saw anybody like that.
Right. They're out there. Have you ever had someone come to you and say, "Can you work with me and train me to be an artist?"
I think maybe once, and I said no.
And you said no because?
You can't. You can't train anybody to be an artist. It reminds me of things I went through when I was a student at Pratt Institute. And these poor guys and gals coming there to become an artist, they wanted to learn that way. You just can't. You're either an artist or you're not.
Well, can you learn art technique and people?
Yes, but that's different than being an artist.
It's the same. It's the same thing with music. You can train. I call people that just want to learn the piano, but are not serious recreational musicians. And then once in a while you find the ones who are really innately talented.
I find that innately talented people at a particular thing don't really care that much about technique as other people do.
Well, I think you have to learn some of the fundamentals.
Because they're reacting to their own, emotionality and passion. And people, quite frankly, people that want to learn how to be a great painter, but don't have. You have to have passion. You have to have emotion. You have to have.
It's no different in music, kiddo.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's no different in
but
music.
They couldn't care less about technique. That comes to you after you've been doing something a while.
Well, yeah, you have to be exposed to certain techniques.
You have to be good enough. You just have to be good enough to accomplish what you want. But I mean, after that, nobody develops. Very few people develop a love for technique. It's something.
It's tedious.
No, it's not that it's tedious.
It is musically. It's tedious. When you're trying to learn.
Unless you're trying different techniques out, and that enhances your creativity, your creative range. Otherwise, it doesn't mean a damn thing.
Interesting. Well, and I never really think too much about visual art because I'm so wrapped up in music.
Well, there's a link between everything creative.
Oh yes.
I know a lot of singers, and I know a lot of musicians and arrangers, composers. And you only have to know enough formally to do what you need to do, but they don't go out. They're more concerned of what comes out of their hearts, their souls, their minds than a book of techniques or something.
Well, it depends on what type of music you're talking about. Classical musicians.
Well, that's more formal.
You have to study.
Classical music's more formal.
You have to study technique,
right?
A lot, and sometimes that overshadows what's coming out of your heart, because you're so inhibited by the rules and regulations of harmony and theory and technique, and so that kind of stops the that creative flow, but the trick is to find the balance.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to have enough technique to let you do what you want to do. But after that, technique has already served its purpose.
Yes, I agree. That's why I don't teach much of it.
Now what I don't do is people's portraits. I tried that once and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
Nobody ever likes it when you try to draw them. Never. Ever. That doesn't look like me.
Right. Good. Just go take a picture.
Yeah, really.
That still doesn't look like me. Yes,
Exactly.
it does.
Somebody who I knew wanted me to photograph their wedding, and I said, no, I don't do things. I can't do that. And he pleaded with me every day until I finally gave in against my better judgment. And I photographed their wedding party or whatever it was, like rolls and rolls of film. And I remember I had all these pictures I took of the tables. I made them stand up, like they used to do in those days. Mm-hmm. When I got in the hallway, I realized there's no film in my camera.
Oh no. Oh my.
I said it was my most embarrassing story. They said, what happened to the pictures? I said, oh, they must have, the lab must have had an accident,
Well, we, when I got married at 20 years old, we had a photographer, a professional photographer who was a friend of the family, take our pictures. And he took all of the family pictures and friends and so on.
Yeah.
And we waited and waited for our pictures to come back. We got married in February in Minnesota, which was cold and winter, and the pictures, he kept saying, I sent it to the lab to have them developed, and I don't know where they are. Well, we didn't get them, and I was heartbroken. We didn't get them, and one day we get a call.
Yeah.
I think it was from the photographer, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, it was a cousin of mine. That's right. The snow melted. What happened was the postman was delivering it to the photographer who lived next door to this cousin. And the snow melted, and there was the canister with the pictures.
Oh, my God.
All rolled up into this canister, which was metal with paper around it, so it had been protected from the weather, the elements, and so there were our pictures.
Wow, wow. So, but you can see in my case that was pretty embarrassing. So.
Yeah, well, it was embarrassing to our photographer because he didn't know where they were.
That's a whole different kind of a thing.
I know. That yes, it certainly is. It's like me going to play a gig. And on an electric piano, and there's no power.
And I think one of the reasons that whole thing happened because I hated the whole idea of photographing their wedding.
There you go.
I didn't want to do it.
Well, there you are.
So
you didn't do it.
Never do anything you really don't want to do because obviously
I always say
has an effect on you.
Listen to your instincts.
Exactly.
And whenever I don't listen to my instincts, I'm always sorry.
Exactly.
If people want to know more about you and your wonderful work, how can we reach you?
Through Facebook.
Okay.
All I have to do is contact me via Facebook.
And how do we spell your last name?
Rothberg. Rothberg.
Rothberg. Okay.
And they can send me a message on Facebook. I'll be happy to have them come over and talk to them or whatever.
Well, they can also call Lessengram and talk to me. They can just send us a form submission on our website and say, we've seen your YouTube interview with Joel Rothberg, and we'd like to know more about his art.
Oh yeah, sure.
And
that would be fun.
And there's a wonderful phone number right there on our website, which, by the way, is 805-324-6006.
Okay.
Lessengram.com.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's see. What else can I tell you guys that you're not going to ask me? So the main reason I did this art show was, as I said, to leave something behind me that I think might be of value to other people, as a memorial to my wife, and I guess those are the two main reasons. And
they're very good reasons.
Yes. And so now I've done that, what I like is that I had certain things I want to do and I did them.
You have more to do though.
I think I might, yeah.
No, you do. You have to always think that way. I have more to do.
Well, yeah,
Well, we have to have a purpose, kiddo.
I guess.
Yeah.
Reading, writing, arithmetic, we will show you how it sticks.